Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes AP Top 25 Takeaways. Turns out, Oklahoma's back, tide rising in West, coaching malpractice at Miami. Wyoming beats number 24 Fresno State 24-19, ends second longest win streak in the nation at 14 games. France urges swift deal on EU power reform to counter US subsidies. Russia-Ukraine war, list of key events, day 592. Our love for travel burns deeply. Oil giants search for green aviation solution. AP Top 25 Takeaways. Turns out, Oklahoma's back, tide rising in West, coaching malpractice at Miami. The Toronto Star. The Oklahoma Sooners defeated the Texas Longhorns in the final Red River rivalry game in the Big 12 before the conference moves to the Southeastern Conference. The win solidified the Sooners as college football playoff contenders. It was Oklahoma coach Brent Venables' first signature win, and he has quickly eased fans' fears after taking over a team that struggled with tackling last year. Quarterback Dylan Gabriel, a transfer from UCF, led the Sooners to victory with 285 passing yards and 113 rushing yards. The Longhorns had a chance to win but made several mistakes, including 3 turnovers and a failed attempt to score from the 1-yard line. Despite the loss, Texas coach Steve Sarkisian remains optimistic, saying the team can play better. The article also highlights the success of Alabama and Georgia in the SEC, as well as the coaching mistake made by Miami in their loss to Georgia Tech. Wyoming beats number 24 Fresno State 24-19, ends second longest win streak in the nation at 14 games. The Toronto Star. Wyoming ended Fresno State's 14-game winning streak with a 24-19 victory on Saturday. Wyoming quarterback Andrew Peasley threw 3 touchdown passes, while nose tackle Cole Godbout had an interception in the final minute to seal the win. The victory was Wyoming's first against a ranked opponent since 2016. Fresno State quarterback Mikey Keene left the game with a lower leg injury, and his status is unknown. The loss may knock Fresno State out of the rankings, while Wyoming could see their first appearance in the AP poll since 1998. France urges swift deal on EU power reform to counter US subsidies. Financial Times. France's energy minister, Agnes Pannier-Runacher, has warned that the US will be the main beneficiary if a Franco-German divide over nuclear power prevents the reform of Europe's electricity market from being finalized. Pannier-Runacher said that the reform was needed urgently to provide businesses with visibility on power prices, as the US was luring industry through President Joe Biden's clean energy subsidy program. Germany has shut down its nuclear reactors, while France has pledged to build new ones, leading to divergences over how nuclear energy will be priced and subsidized. Russia-Ukraine war, list of key events, day 592. Al Jazeera. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed to have shot down 2 Ukrainian anti-aircraft missiles over the Crimean Peninsula. They also reported shooting down a Ukrainian drone near Moscow, which caused no damage or injuries. In Belgorod, Russia, 3 Ukrainian missiles were destroyed, and 1 person was killed in a shelling attack by Ukrainian forces. In Novokakhovka, a member of Russia's United Russia Party was killed by a car bomb. In Hroza, Ukraine, locals buried victims of a Russian missile strike that killed around 50 people, and it was confirmed that the majority of the victims were civilians. Ramzan Kadyrov, the head of Russia's Chechnya region, proposed postponing or limiting the upcoming presidential election in Russia due to the war in Ukraine. A U.S. think tank reported an increase in rail traffic along the North Korea-Russia border, suggesting arms supplies from Pyongyang to Moscow. Denmark's defense ministry plans to restart ammunition production after a 55-year gap to meet the increased demand for military hardware caused by Russia's war in Ukraine. Our love for travel burns deeply. Oil giants search for green aviation solution. The Sydney Morning Herald. The aviation industry will need to produce 300 million tons of sustainable aviation fuel annually to meet demand for passenger journeys that are forecasted to exceed 10 billion by 2050. This was the conclusion of a panel discussion at the Abu Dhabi International Petroleum Exhibition and Conference, which was attended by executives from Boeing, Airbus, French oil major TotalEnergies and Canadian biofuel producer Enercom. The panel also highlighted that only 25% of global fleets were using the most modern aircraft, which was a barrier to the faster uptake of sustainable aviation fuels. Life in a city under siege by Islamist fighters. BBC. Residents in cities in Mali, which are under siege by Al-Qaeda-linked militants, are facing shortages of food, fuel, and medicine, with rapidly rising prices. For nearly 2 months, the city of Timbuktu has been completely cut off by Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, JNIM, preventing supplies from getting in. The city of Gao is also being blockaded by JNIM. The blockades have come as fighting intensifies between the army, backed by Russian Wagner mercenaries, and both Islamist groups and ethnic Tuareg separatist fighters. The UN estimates that 33,000 people have fled Timbuktu. The city was occupied by Tuareg rebels following an uprising by separatists in 2012, but al-Qaeda-linked Islamic groups quickly took control and imposed a strict form of Sharia law. Mali government forces, backed by French troops, retook the city, but those French forces have since left the country and the UN's peacekeeping mission is also pulling out. The conflict is threatening to spread outside Mali and across Africa's Sahel region, as both the government and Tuareg rebels have called for international support. On Russian nuclear threat, Putin lets others rattle the saber. Japan Times. Russia's hardliners are advocating for the use of nuclear weapons to restore fear of Russian might. However, President Vladimir Putin seems to be taking a more measured approach and is not joining this chorus. He seems to relish the role of the cool-headed decision-maker when it comes to nuclear weapons, while still keeping the threat of a nuclear strike alive. Why Europe is watching Poland's election. BBC. Poland is holding an election on October 15, with the populist, right-wing United Right coalition, led by the Law and Justice Party, seeking a third term in office. The opposition leader, Donald Tusk, has warned that the election is the country's most important since the fall of communism in 1989. The ruling party is currently ahead in the polls, but may struggle to form a coalition to win an outright majority. The far-right Confederation Party may play a crucial role in helping Law and Justice maintain power. Migration, relations with the EU and judicial reform are key election issues. An attack from Gaza and an Israeli declaration of war. Now what? Japan Times. Israel has been taken by surprise by a sudden attack from Hamas and its allies, marking a full-scale conflict with rocket barrages and incursions into Israel, resulting in Israeli casualties. The psychological impact on Israelis has been compared to the shock of 9/11 in America. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing the question of what to do next, with few good options and pressure to respond militarily. Israel faces long, difficult war with Hamas. BBC. Israel's military has warned that Hamas militants from Gaza are still fighting inside Israel after they infiltrated southern communities and left a reported 250 people dead. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the sixth dimension. Today, we have a diverse range of news stories to discuss, from college football to international conflicts. So, let's dive right into it. In the world of college football, the Oklahoma Sooners emerged victorious in their final Red River rivalry game against the Texas Longhorns. This win solidified their status as college football playoff contenders and eased fans' fears after a struggling season last year. Meanwhile, Alabama and Georgia continue to dominate in the SEC, showcasing their power in the college football world. However, Miami's loss to Georgia Tech shed light on some coaching malpractice, leaving fans questioning their team's performance. Moving on to a surprising upset, Wyoming ended Fresno State's 14-game winning streak in a thrilling victory. Quarterback Andrew Peasley led Wyoming to success with 3 touchdown passes, while nose tackle Cole Godbout's interception sealed the win. This victory marked Wyoming's first against a ranked opponent since 2016 and may potentially launch them into the AP poll for the first time in over 2 decades. Shifting gears to international affairs, France is urging a swift deal on EU power reform to counter the US subsidies. France's energy minister warns that if there's no agreement between France and Germany over nuclear power, the US will benefit the most, thanks to President Joe Biden's clean energy subsidy program. This highlights the challenges and divergences faced by European countries when it comes to nuclear energy pricing and subsidies. In the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, tensions continue to escalate. The Russian Defense Ministry claims to have shot down Ukrainian missiles and drones, while Ukrainian forces retaliated with their own attacks. The conflict has led to casualties on both sides and even raised concerns about the upcoming presidential election in Russia. Meanwhile, Denmark plans to restart ammunition production to meet the increased demand caused by the war in Ukraine. Switching gears once more, we turn our attention to the aviation industry's search for a green solution. With the demand for air travel projected to exceed 10 billion passenger journeys by 2050, the industry needs to produce 300 million tons of sustainable aviation fuel annually. This panel discussion highlighted the need for faster adoption of sustainable aviation fuels and the barrier posed by outdated aircraft. On a somber note, residents in cities in Mali are facing a dire situation due to blockades by al-Qaeda-linked militants. Shortages of food, fuel, and medicine, along with skyrocketing prices, are causing immense hardship for the people. The conflict in Mali has been ongoing for years, and the UN estimates that thousands have fled the affected cities. The situation is not only a humanitarian crisis but also a potential threat to regional stability. In the realm of politics, Poland's upcoming election is being closely watched. The ruling Law and Justice Party seeks a third term in office, with the opposition warning that this election is the most important since the fall of communism. Migration, relations with the EU, and judicial reform are key issues that will shape the country's future. The outcome of this election will undoubtedly have significant implications not just for Poland but also for Europe as a whole. Lastly, we turn our attention to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. Israel has been caught off guard by a sudden attack from Hamas and its allies, leading to a full-scale conflict with casualties on both sides. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces the difficult task of deciding how to respond, with pressure mounting for military action. And there you have it, a whirlwind of news from across the globe. These stories showcase the diverse and complex nature of our world. As always, I encourage you, my astute audience, to share your thoughts and questions. What are your thoughts on these events? What questions do you have? I eagerly await your insights. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.